As a business owner, if I were feeling completely overwhelmed at the idea of starting a fitness journey, there's only three things that I would focus on to get momentum. If you are a business owner or a leader who is on the edge of burnout and you don't really know where to start with your fitness, therefore, every time you start, you tend to fall off pretty quickly, you don't want to try to do everything at once. That's where most people get stuck. They know they should work out, they know they should eat protein, they know that they should be sleeping better, but they're doing none of it. And that's because they're trying to eat the elephant all at once. They're overwhelmed. And therefore, they're waiting until circumstances are perfect in order to take action. And therefore, they're waiting for a really long time. So if I were to be in your position, burnt out, overwhelmed at the idea of starting with fitness, here are the three things that I would focus on. Number one, I would just focus on getting 10 minutes of daily movement. Movement is not about burning calories. And like so many business owners believe, it is actually not about how much you sweat, how high your heart rate gets, or how sore you are the next day. Movement is powerful because it's a state changer. When you move, you get energy. When you move, you start to feel a little better. Your stress goes down a little bit. And we so dismiss how powerful a micro bit of movement is that sometimes if we don't feel like we can do a whole workout, we result to doing nothing. So if I were trying to get momentum, if I were feeling a little overwhelmed at the idea of fitness, I would just start with doing 10 to 20 minutes of movement per day. And I wouldn't really care what that movement was. It could be yoga, it could be a super short lifting workout, it could be a walk, a run, it could be anything. And again, the key is when you're thinking about getting into fitness, you don't want to start with something that feels overwhelming from the get-go, or something that you feel like you can't maintain for the next 4, 6, 8 plus weeks. So you start small, but you trust that meeting yourself where you're at is actually what's going to help you be successful. And where you start isn't necessarily where you end. Now, if you hear that and you think, Lindsay, how is that ever going to get me any results? I hear you. I understand. If you only do that for the rest of time, you might not get results or you'll have really, really slow results. That's not the point. The point is if you're burnt out and you try to do too much, you're not going to get anywhere with it. You might have a week of consistency, but then you're going to fall off again. So we have to do things differently. And what starting small gives you is the opportunity to start now versus trying to almost earn your way to the opportunity to start. This is the lie that we tell ourselves so often as ambitious people who are pushing lots of projects forward. We think, oh, after the next project, I'll work on that goal. Or, oh, after the next sale, I'll invest in myself. And we keep pushing the goalpost. The most powerful thing you can do for yourself is to start now. And starting with something that's almost stupid easy is actually how you give yourself the opportunity to make progress. And progress is actually what gives you happiness. It's not checking off the goal. It's starting to see wins compound. The second thing that I would focus on if I wanted to get momentum again is winning the first hour of the day. Now, I don't mean go do a miracle morning. What I mean is eat a healthy breakfast. This is something that in the nutrition category is easily overlooked because of how simple it is. But again, when it comes to fitness and health, we tend to want to fix everything at once. Instead of thinking, how could I make my approach to nutrition better? We think, what's the perfect strategy? Let's start today. And what that does is it tries to overhaul your life. And when you actually see that your life as a whole hasn't changed, it's almost like you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole. You do it maybe for a few days, maybe for a week if you're lucky, but then your family wants to go out to eat, a client needs to go out to lunch with you, who knows, right? Something happens that disrupts the plan and then the whole thing falls apart. So instead of thinking, how can I build the perfect diet plan or how can I meal prep every meal? If you feel overwhelmed by the idea of fitness, don't start with something huge. Start with something small like eating a healthy breakfast. And the caveat here is, yes, eventually you will need to eat 100 grams of protein plus. Eventually, you will need to focus on calories, especially if you have a weight loss goal. There are progressions to each of these habits, but again, remember, we're not trying to lose 30 pounds tomorrow. We're trying to just get some consistency back. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, the best thing that you can do for yourself, the gift you can give, is to start small. So focus on eating a healthy breakfast that has proteins, fats, and carbs. If you can do that, you're going to make better choices for the rest of the day. The third thing I would focus on if I was feeling burnt out and overwhelmed is my sleep. If you are sleeping poorly, if you are sleeping less than 6 hours a day, it's so very likely that you are not making the best decisions. And that's not just in business. That is when it comes to your nutrition, when it comes to working out. You have so much less capacity when you are sleeping. And what's interesting is that sometimes we high performers, business owners, entrepreneurs, we tend to think that rest is for the weak, that we'll sleep when we're dead. Right? But what we miss when we get in that mindset is that sleep is performance. Think of a professional athlete. Do you think that they're skimping out on their sleep so that they can train for days and days and days on end and hope they get to the game this weekend and perform well? No, their sleep is their golden time. It cannot be messed with. And you have to think of yourself the same way as an athlete thinks of themselves. Your sport is business. Your sport is your work. And you don't just have your work. You have everything else that you're trying to do for your family, your community, etc. So you have to think of yourself as an athlete and take care of your body. Otherwise, you're going to leave it behind and it's going to start to hinder you. So thinking about sleep, if I were to feel burnt out, I would really focus on getting at least 30 extra minutes of sleep. You probably expected me to say 8 hours, 9 hours. But again, we're giving ourselves permission to start small here. However much sleep you get right now, if it's anything less, let's just say than 8 hours, just to keep it simple, get 30 extra minutes from where you are. We have clients who come in and we're sleeping 3 hours. We don't tell them to go sleep 8. We tell them to sleep 4, right? Or 4.5. We help them incrementally start building that habit of sleep back into their life, because they're used to staying up late. They're used to all the habits that keep them up. That's it. That's all I would focus on if I were feeling burnt out and overwhelmed and not really sure where to start. And again, remember, you're giving yourself permission to start small so you can build up. And the reason I'm giving you these 3 habits specifically is because these 3 habits act as what are called keystone habits in the health world. A keystone habit is essentially that one routine or that habit, that behavior that positively ripples into everything else that you do. If you get a good night of sleep, you have more capacity the next day. And when you have more capacity, you wake up a little bit more energized. You don't hit snooze as often. You probably are more likely to get a workout. And if you get a workout, you're more likely to make healthy eating decisions. And if you eat healthy, you're more likely to sleep better and have a better day overall. That is a keystone habit. Getting 30 extra minutes of sleep, just like I gave you, could be the keystone habit that unlocks all the healthy behaviors you want. So don't underestimate the power of these small habits and how they can impact your health, your momentum, and your progress from this day forward. The bottom line here is if you're feeling overwhelmed at where to start with your fitness, you don't need to transform your life overnight. And to keep trying is actually digging you deeper into the hole of overwhelm that you're in. Instead, you want to start asking yourself, what is the one habit that will have the greatest impact on my day? And then try to make that habit so simple, so stupid doable that you can't help but follow through. That is what you are aiming for, and that's where you'll get momentum back on your side. All in all, I hope that this conversation has been helpful for you. I hope it's helped you see that you don't have to overhaul your whole life to get momentum and to make some progress. If you start small, if you focus on movement, eating a healthy first meal, and getting a little bit more sleep, you will start to feel better. You'll get momentum back on your side. And before you know it, you'll be ready for those bigger routines around tracking your calories or meal prepping or working out consistently. But for now, your only mission is to start. Get some momentum, get some progress under your belt, and then report back and we can help you with the next steps. So do me a favor, if this was helpful, smash the like button if you are on YouTube. Maybe share this with somebody who you know is overwhelmed and needs to hear it too. And then let us know in the comments below, which habit are you going to be starting with? Are you going to take this stack and start with all three, or is there one that really stood out to you that's going to give you momentum this week? With that said, go out and conquer your day. Cheers.